In this video, I will make a comparison between different shell types. For example, I will make a comparison between Bash and Zsh shell, more commonly known as Z shell. Also, I will make another comparison between Bash and PowerShell, which is common for Microsoft Windows. So let's get started. Now, before making a comparison between Bash and Z shell, I would like to talk about the basics of Bash shortly. As most of you already know that Bash is the default programming language for most Unix-based systems including Linux. For your knowledge, it is the default command line interpreter, in short CLI, for Bash scripting, which is widely used for task automation and system administration. It can be also used for other variety of tasks, starting from task scheduling to research. Now, talking about the basics of Z shell, in short ZSH, for your information, it was invented after the arrival of Bash programming language. However, it is not the default programming language for Linux, but it is default for Mac OS for the versions 10.15 or later. Interestingly, it has got advanced features like associative arrays and more advanced control of control structures such as if-else statements and loop structures. The development of ZSH was a motivation for the improvement over Bash, but however, it became more popular for Mac OS systems. Now, I would like to talk about an important section, which is the advantages of using Bash over ZSH. Firstly, using Bash, you can achieve high portability across different Unix-like systems. Interestingly, Bash uses less startup time to load, and for simplicity, it has got simple syntax and command structures which allows the users to get used to it in no time. For further knowledge, Bash has got strong job control capabilities which can allow multiple processes to be handled together. Also, it has got tools for error handling and debugging, which is a very important tool for efficient programming. The differences between Bash and ZSH can be argued upon different evaluation metrics. First, I will be differentiating them based on shell configuration and startup files. For your information, Bash was released as a replacement for the Bourne shell, whereas ZSH is developed as an extended version of Bash having new features. Bash is default on most Unix-based systems including Linux, whereas ZSH is not set as default, but it can be done so using different commands. Also, Bash does not contain many environment scripts, whereas ZSH has a lot of environment scripts including zlogin, zlogout, and so on. Next, I will be differentiating them based on command line interface features. Bash uses the backslash as an escape character, whereas ZSH uses the %. Theme customization is not available in Bash, whereas you can customize themes in ZSH. Spelling correction, an important feature, is not supported in Bash, whereas ZSH identifies spelling mistakes and suggests correction. Basic history management features are available in Bash, whereas in ZSH, the history management features are more advanced, like searching and editing previous commands that were used. Now I will be differentiating them based on plugin and module ecosystem. Bash does not support new plugins, that is, it does not allow you to import new plugins or modules in the system, whereas in ZSH, different plugins or modules can be imported. Another advantage of ZSH is it has a modular architecture, that is, it can adapt to new features or new features can be added to the pre-existing architecture, whereas in Bash, it cannot be done as it is a non-modular architecture. Last, I will be differentiating them based on performance and efficiency. Bash has a faster startup time, whereas ZSH takes time to load. There is no execution priority for commands in Bash, whereas you can set a priority for different commands in ZSH. Talking about the basics of PowerShell, It is the command line interface, in short CLI, used for Microsoft Windows operating system. For your knowledge, it can function both as a scripting language and also as a configuration management tool, meaning you can configure your folders, files, and other installation packages. As it is a scripting language, it can be used for task automation and system integration. Interestingly, different cross-platform versions of PowerShell are available for both Linux and macOS systems. Now I will be talking about the differences between Bash and PowerShell. PowerShell was introduced in the year 2006, whereas Bash was introduced way earlier in the year 1989. Bash is used as a shell and command line interpreter in Unix-like systems such as Linux, whereas PowerShell is used for task automation and configuration management in Windows operating system. For your information, Bash treats inputs and outputs as strings or text structures, whereas PowerShell treats them as objects. Also, Bash has got a simple text-based command line interface, whereas PowerShell has a more graphical command line interface. In the next section, I will be talking about a few more differences. Bash is native to Linux operating system, but also usable on Windows, macOS, and Unix-based systems, whereas PowerShell is native to Windows operating system and can also be used on Linux and macOS. Furthermore, Bash is applicable for Linux environments and servers, whereas PowerShell is widely used for Microsoft environments and programs. Both Bash and PowerShell is installed by default in their own systems, but PowerShell can also be extended using API. Now I will be answering the common question, that is, which is better to use, Bash or PowerShell? As I have described earlier, Bash and PowerShell both have their own advantages and disadvantages and is applicable for different scenarios. Bash would be a great fit if you are using Unix-based systems such as Linux and want to task automate for file systems and system configuration, whereas PowerShell would be a great fit if you are a Windows user and would like to interact with Windows applications. Thinking from the perspective of a Linux developer, it would be best to use Bash shell for task automation. So that was all for today. Thank you for watching.